Use my affiliate link to support the channel down in the description. Hey, what's up, guys? It's MetaGamesGX here, and we're going to be doing a how to side and side patterns and just general tips, and then I'm going to give some examples on really siding with branded DESPIA in 2024, because this is a question I get a lot, actually. Just like basic, just siding patterns and, how to side with branded depending on the deck. So we're going to give a few examples against the top 3 decks of this upcoming format. And then we are also going to go over just like really the 8 or 10 or so tips that you really should know when siding with branded, and easy side outs, and because there's kind of just rules with siding, and this can apply to other decks as well. So if you're learning other decks and are just looking how to side, and that's how you found this video, I think this is still actually a very valuable video for you to watch, because we're going to be talking about really just some really good tips and pointers and what you should be doing when you're siding with Yu-Gi-Oh that I wish I knew when I came back to this game a year ago. I came back to this game after playing last time in 2015, and that might not have sounded that too far away, but the game changed a lot with a lot of power creep, so I had to learn a lot and just was put out there in the wild, and there was a lot of stuff I really wish I would have known earlier if I had someone there to help me learn the current format. So I'm going to try to do that for you guys with this, with brand DESPIA at least. So, and, we're going to use that as the example. All right, so I think that you guys can see that we have the card split up into multiple different piles, and that's because your deck is generally in Yu-Gi-Oh made off of different sections of cards, and how they, your cards can fall into different subsets of category. Pools of cards that we can take out of. You can think of it as that while we side. So when you're looking at different siding, because you're going to have these rules I'm going to show you for siding first and second, and then you can use these different pools and be like, what can I side out for this situation? What isn't good here? What is bad here? So that you can put in non-engine that covers your matchup, because that is the point of your side deck. You're trying to cover your matchups in a way that you can't necessarily in your main deck, because it would ruin your consistency, or you just don't have the room with Yu-Gi-Oh being a 40 to 60 card main deck anyway. So, as a branded player, generally I see my side deck as a tool to cover my weaknesses, and that I can't otherwise cover in my main deck. So for example, I can't necessarily cover purrely noir in my main deck very well, but in the side deck I can definitely run a Herald of the Abyss, which is one of the best sides in the whole game for outing a purrely noir, because it outs it with getting over its unaffected nature. So with that little short preview, let's get into the piles. Right here we have the non-engine. I think every deck has non-engine. This is the 10 or whatever amount of cards that you set aside, so that when you go second, or when you get interrupted essentially, or when you have options, so every deck has to run them. They end up bricking your deck more often than not, but they're there to help you go second, so that's why we have to run them at the end of the day. And then right here we have the bricks. Every deck has its bricks, its quote-unquote garnets. So in my branded build, you have Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, and then Dark Magician. So the garnets are pieces that you have to run essentially, because your deck, they usually end up fulfilling a specific role you want your deck to fulfill. We have Dark Magician here, which makes Dragoon, which is one of the most uniquely powerful boss monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh, being an Omni-Negate that's unaffected, that's untargetable, and also undestroyable, nearly unaffected essentially. So I like to run this because it covers all of my matchups. I can run it, I justify my main versus my side, because I think it's generally good against most decks. And whereas most side cards, I'm like, it's probably not best against at least more than 60% of the decks, which is usually what I want to aim for at the low number for my non-engine in my main deck. So yeah. And then we have the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, which, as we all know, fulfills a very specific role of winning the game essentially. So we are going to be running this. However, it's a pure brick. If you draw either of these cards, it's a pure brick. So do you end up siding these garnets out usually? Probably not. But you can in the case of branded. I just usually wouldn't. It just depends on what your deck does. In case of branded specifically, since we're talking branded, Gimmick Puppet can be sided out going second most of the time. I do like keeping it in a lot of the time because some people will just give you first. Not a lot of the time, but it will happen. I guarantee it. Where they will just give you first when they lost the last round because they thought that you are going to side out Gimmick Puppet and siding going first cards or going second cards, which the latter will be true, but you can usually keep in the Gimmick Puppet if you want to be safe, if you think they're going to do that. Or, in this meta where it's a grind game, like against, some grindy decks, I would actually probably keep this in because sometimes you have to break a board and then you can't necessarily kill them. So Gimmick Puppeting is the easiest way to secure a win that way. And Dark Magician can be sided out. You need Dragoon against everything. Now we have the next pile, which is... Now we have the engine of the main deck of Branded. Branded famously has a huge engine. Like, what is unfortunate about the deck, or maybe fortunate because you have a lot of really strong cards, is that you aren't able to run, or your main deck engine for all the branded cards is quite large. This is about 30 cards on its own just to run, and a lot of these cards are very much uncuttable. So this makes it so branded usually has to go above 40 cards if you want to fit in those 10 non-engines, because there's a few different piles, guys. There's the engine, the non-engine, and then the bricks, and then the extenders, and you kind of have to go up to 40 for 40 usually to fit that all, unless you want to cut down on this. Just go into what is pretty cuttable in branded. Most of the time that you want to keep your Alubers, however, you can side out a singular Aluber if you want most of the time. Just because, I mean, they are very good, but this is always an option. I would also say what a better option than that is, though, is not siding out the Aluber and siding out one branded opening. Siding out one branded opening is one of my favorite things to do in branded because it's a discard one going second. So it's already putting you behind and getting rid of your advantage of going second. It is an opener, but when you have 6 cards, you usually can get there no matter what. Through like even thruster tactics, so it's like you don't need to have 3, and it's kind of bricky that way. Like against Fire King, I'd probably keep it in because you need the destroy, but that is what it is. Albaz I definitely would keep in. You don't really want to touch these guys. You need them for the grind game. Like, I've seen some builds run 2 in the past, but you kind of need to run 3 in my opinion. And then you have 2 Cartesia. Cartesia is a very good card. It's one of the best cards in the whole Branded main deck, being a quick play fusion. I think you can side out one of her two with the same logic as a fusion duplication as with the opening. Either or, if you're playing against a deck with anti-spell, side out the spell and then keep in the Cartesia, but kind of thing. But that's always an option. But you usually want to keep, you don't want to touch this engine too much, but the 2 Quem, not necessary too much, especially going second. You don't want to have too many normal summons, so a second Quem is usually one of my most easy side outs. Adlib is quite similar. I would say that Adlib, you can side out going second most of the time, but going first, I'd keep it in. Although it is a brick, it really does help a lot. And then, yeah, you do have to keep at least 1 Quem is the situation there. Quem just does a lot for you. And then we have a Spriggan's Kit. Spriggan's Kit is a super easily cuttable card when you're siding. Going first or second, it's just extra engine. I run it because of allures. 3 Shrouded Dragon. When you're running 3, which is quite popular nowadays, you can usually cut down to 2, especially if you cut out the allures because you're siding in hand traps, which we'll get into once we get into the actual side deck. And then we will have the Mercurial Tragedy. You kind of just have to keep these guys in. They're bricks. Like, these could go under the brick category, but they are kind of engine. So I will, you have to keep them in. You really can't side them out. And then you have the Bestial package, which I do run a Magma in the main. I do have that under the non-engine, though. I used to actually side out a lot, but nowadays I find them amazing. Like Lubellion going second, you can just get into Lost very easily, which Lost is your key to winning. So that's why I don't side him out anymore, and for that reason I don't side out the Saronir, so these guys usually stay in. Maximus, if you run the Nadir package, very cuttable. I think Nadir plus Maximus are very cuttable cards. We will just get into the Nadirs right now since we're there, and also the Magnamut since we were just on that. Magnamut's it is probably the most. This is very cuttable. That's why you don't even have to main deck it. And then the Nadir Maximus package, they are very good going first. They secure you the win basically and get your full combo off through hand traps, but going second, they are horrible. So for the most part, so you can side these are very easy side outs, and this is what we're going to talk about with side patterns. You can have side patterns going first or second with the side deck you have. What is a side pattern? That's where you have certain cards that you basically always side out against a general amount of decks going first or second. So my side pattern is for going second against most decks is to take out these guys and put in then a 4 board breakers at least, or just 4 non-engine that will help me going second. But going first, I will usually most of the time keep these in. And then obviously the branded spells and traps. There's no way you can cut any of these. You can cut branded high spirits if anything, because it's the least runnable. So besides that, do not cut these except for branded opening. And then we'll get into the extenders quickly. The rest of the extenders, we have three fusion deployment, very good cards. They are basically, they allow you to 3 fusion deployment, they allow you to get into Cartesia very easily, and they break boards. However, you can side out 1 like I said before, but most of the time you want to keep them in because they're one of your best cards. And then you have Allure and Gold Sark, and then 3 Allures. So Foolish Burial, 3 Allures, and then 1 Gold Sark. So these 2 guys, you usually want to keep Foolish in. It's just such a versatile card for your deck. You can use it in plethora of ways, either sending the Puppet or searching Tragedy, or just sending an Albaz to spec Cartesia or Albion or a Saronir. So Gold Sark is the same except it adds. So it's going to play into draw a lot more than Foolish will. So for that reason, if you see your opponent on draw, this is a automatic side out in my opinion. And same with these guys, especially when you are playing hand traps as well. I do main the hand traps and main these 2, but you probably want to side out the Allures if you're running, like, if you side in more hand traps. So besides that though, Allure is a very good card and it lets you draw into your non-engine. With this upcoming format, a lot more people are going to be on draw, so this is kind of like, your mileage may vary and you might not end up running Allures. This is just my current build, and for that reason I want to show what you guys would do, and for that reason I'd probably keep these in essentially no matter what, unless you see draw or if you have a lot of hand traps in your deck. But they're good, very good for going first or second. You get to dig through your decks, your engine and non-engine. That's why it's very good. And then you have your non-engine. So this might be the most important pile because it's going to really shape how you are able to play going first and second. So because everyone runs hand traps, so you always will be interrupted. I have this package for being interrupted by Ash or other monster hand traps. 3 thrusts, 1 talents, 1 called by, and then 1 duplication. Usually I have to keep these in no matter what. Unless I don't see them on hand traps for whatever reason. The called by is even pretty good going second right now, because of the Promethean Princess and stuff like that. So I'm going to be probably keeping this in going second a lot of the time. And then you have the fusion duplication. This is the most cuttable out of them because going second, you don't want to draw this. So you can usually cut fusion duplication going second as a side pattern. Talents is just so good, so you keep that in. Thrust is just also so good. You want to keep these in going second. So going first is the only time I'd ever consider signing these out. And even then, that's why you run it, because it's one of your outs for Ash. And then you have 3 Super Poly, and so Super Poly is good going first and second in my opinion. I've won games just setting 2 Super Polys and then just passing and winning against Full Power Infernoble. So it's one of those cards I usually keep in unless it's a deck I can't use it very well against, which there's not really too many decks like that you can't super poly. So if any, like, so they're usually staying in this new format. Against fire decks, I think what you can go is super poly, make Mud Dragon, and then their princess can't target because you call fire, and Mud Dragon protects targeting of fires on either side of the field. So then you have the 3 Imperm and the 3 Ash Blossom for the hand traps. These will always stay in unless I go second, or unless I go first, and even then, if I go first, what I can do before we go into the side deck is side in my crossout designators for 1 and 1, so I at least keep them, and I can side out 2 more, so I have more room for maybe going first cards like Droplet or something like that, or like a D barrier, because D barrier is actually quite good going first because you can thrust it out if you get hand trapped, which is a turn skip against like something such as Purrely. These guys, some people don't like hand traps and branded. This is for the previous format. This is not for the format with Princess. But I am thinking with Princess in mind. I'm talking about the build. So this video is for the new format. Don't worry about that. But the hand traps are here are from a build before. I would probably not be running Ash in my main post Fam Nightmare as a branded player. Any other deck, yes. So yeah, and then you have your side deck. I will show you guys what you generally want to do with these. You want to design your deck, your side deck, really just to cover your weaknesses. So let's go over like how to build your branded side deck quickly. You want to cover all your weaknesses and then also look at the meta and what you need to cover as well, what the most represented deck will be. So currently we are in Fire King format, so the top 3 decks are Fire King, Rescue Ace, and Branded arguably, and then going into Fam Nightmare format, it's going to be probably Voiceless Voice, Rescue Ace, and Fire King if I had to imagine, and then Branded as the 4th or 5th deck. With that in mind, we have the Cosmic Cyclones because it takes out a lot of back row decks, and then also it specifically takes out Fire King Island very well. This card is a blowout against Fire King, so this usually goes in going first or second against Fire Kings, siding out any of those cuttable cards, obviously, and then also we have D-Barrier and Crossout. So D-Barrier Crossout is nice because you're playing Lab a lot of the time this format, depending on where your locals is or your tournaments, so I think that having this, you need it kind of. No other deck is really looping D-Barrier like they do, and they can turn 0 if they're main decking it, which good players don't, but it's something that you still have to consider at your locals or something like that. So I run 2 crossouts for that, and then also you have the Ash and Imperm and the Drolls and the one of Go spell for the crossout. This is also just for Labyrinth mainly, but it's a one of because I don't think now with the new format you could up this to 3, but people will be cross-outing you currently, so that's why I am going to be running that there. And then we have the 3 Droll and Lockbird. This goes in again. This is our failsafe. This is something that I'm going to be main decking post Fam Nightmare, but right now it's something that will always be there for all the fire decks that will be searching Populace, and then also Vanadium, and then also the other combo decks. This is the only card that stops Vanadium essentially, so you have to have that. And then you also have Droplets. Droplets, you need them for, the turn skip decks like Branded, and then also Centurion, but then also it's really just versatile against any deck that plays Baron essentially. So it's very good, and these could go in first or second, frankly, especially to take out some hand traps, like but most of the time they're going second. Like most of these cards are going second because you don't have an issue going first with Branded, so you're covering your weaknesses. And then also you have the Herald of the Abyss, which is your coverage for Purrely because you can go Thrust when they go Noir Draw in main phase, and then or Noir Draw in standby because it made the Thrust live, and then you can get Herald of the Abyss, and then you can send their Noir, and then that's bye-bye. Or that you super poly their field before they get to it. So but you need this though because you can't guarantee the super poly. So Thrust gets you there because that's like 4 cards. So the D barrier is there also because it's a thrust target for that reason too. You can go first, use this, and then if they hand trap you, you just set thrust, and then you turn skip a Purrely player, a Branded player, whatever it is, a deck that can lose to this. And it will be good against actually the Voiceless Voices deck because you can call Ritual, so very good in that scenario as well. And then you have the Masquerade for time. I think you have to consider time. Just this is a very grindy format, so just having a monster that can stick on board and provide a pressure for your opponent, so they can't just steal a win from you, essentially, is quite good. It's also quite recursive. It's kind of hard to get rid of, so I think it very much makes up a side slot, and it's really only good. Like, it's good to put your opponent on pressure in, like, games 1 and 2 with this, but it's not really. You don't want to be making Masquerade unless it's a grind game. Even then, you don't need it in a grind game. So, like, that's why I have it in the side deck, and you can just side out, like, the Dragoon or something, or one of the super poly targets. So, yeah, let's just talk about that. I guess, like, quickly, if you want to know what you can side out for extra X slots, you could just side out super poly targets that basically aren't good against your opponent, because usually against your opponent you will either want one of these, so you can side out the other when the other isn't very good. Oh, and then also, this is going to be the most important side deck card, honestly. This format for you is a soul release. I'm going to talk about other ways that you can run branded with some Sidable cards in order to get over all the graveyard fire effects. However, soul release from Thrust is going to be very good, so you're going to want this siding second against Rescue Ace and Fire King. Just want to get that out of the way, basically. And also, it's pretty good against Salamangreat, too, just like other fire decks and just other pile decks. But you definitely want a soul release on top of some other options to get around the graveyards, such as like DD Crow or such as that. For that reason, DD Crow is also very good this format to get rid of the princess. So definitely going second, you could side this in against Fire King or Rescue Ace. Also, you have Nibiru. Nibiru is a card that you can go first or second against the fire decks right now. So mainly going second. However, it's quite good going first or second right now. Evenly matches, obviously, for the Labyrinth matchup. These always going second, obviously. You can take these in, and then also in combination with Dark Ruler No More, it's quite good, or even Droplet just to get over the Omni Negates. And then you also have Phantasme, which is quite good going second against a lot of the link. All right, so against Fire Kings, this is basically my the side cards I'd be considering from that side package. Going second, I'd be basically putting in these guys. Like I said, I will be maining these, and then you could probably have another option for Fire King in your side deck over a Droll once it's in your main. But Cyclone goes in first or second, though. So going first, though, if you can make room for the Drolls, I would keep them in, just because if they turn skip you, you're going to want this. Ghost Bell, though, can likely go unless you see them on Bell, in which case then you go first. You can put in these guys so that they can't hand trap you. But you keep the Cosmics, because this will be your going first package. This is kind of your going second package. Okay, so against Rescue Ace, you really do want to have Evenlies or Lightnings against Rescue Ace, so you might want to have those in your side deck post Phantom Nightmare, especially when they're very good. I just think this current format's quite diverse to where I don't necessarily need to run the Evenlies right now. Cosmics are quite good against them going second, considering that. And then depending on the build, if they have the Baron build, you could definitely try 2 Droplets or so. I think Droll's probably just okay too, considering that they're going to be using Bonfire, doing a lot of searching, so going second probably okay. Then obviously for the things against the Promethean Princess, you do have Ghost Bell. So I think that this would be your general package against Rescue Ace going second, and then going first. Droll and Lockbird really hurts them going first. It really does. And then also the Droplet is quite okay too. And then you could also put in the Designator, and yeah, that sounds about right. You could also put in the Bell if you see them on Bell, obviously. But I think Droll going first, they just play into it really well. And then also you don't even have to put these in if you don't want, so you just have a nice 6 cards and don't brick your main deck. What if you're playing the mirror match, guys? Because you might see the mirror match. I'd say going first against the mirror match, you obviously want, I think, first or second, frankly, you're going to want the crossout Designator. But most of the time going first, this is just this reads Solemn Ward or Solemn Judgment against a branded player essentially. Also Forbidden Droplet going second is very, very amazing against branded. One of the only cards that can go over Sanctifier Dragoon. Obviously you have the D barrier to thrust out going first. So these could honestly just, we'll do our going first pile. Yeah, going first, we could side these in. You don't need to do too much. You already have the Ashes and Imperms, which are quite good against branded. So going first, you want these, but then going second, you definitely want those. Plus a this guy, so that you get over the Albion, and then Droll if you see a Nadir build. If you see them on Nadir, definitely side this in. Cosmics doesn't do too much, and neither does Herald. And then we'll do one more. What do we side in against Labyrinth? So against Labyrinth, Cosmic Cyclone's quite good. You can get rid of their field spell. You can get rid of the specific trap that they set. Just whenever. It's very good for lying in wait on that reason. The Ghost Spell is quite good also. Also, Bestials are something to consider for this matchup. So these are things you need to consider when you're playing against these top 4 decks, and then also just while you're building your side deck with branded. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was a long one, definitely a very informative one. Please leave a like if you guys want to see a follow-up on more specific matchups, and we will get really granular with it. We'll get that up to 100 likes. Remember to join the Discord. Use my TCG Player affiliate link down below. If you want to donate to support the channel through Streamlabs, the link that is down below as well. Check out our streams. I stream every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday. So see you guys later. Have a good day.